Hello, welcome students, welcome to the amazing chapter of photosynthesis. This is the first of three videos that will explain the process of photosynthesis, which is one of the most amazing and most important processes in biology. So let's have a look at it. What is photosynthesis to start with? Like the word indicates, it has two parts, photo and synthesis. Photo refers to light reactions, which explains how light energy is converted into chemical energy. And the synthesis part refers to the Calvin cycle or the light-independent reactions. How is chemical energy stored in sugar molecules? So, dear students, to understand this chapter well, because it's not the most simple process, but I think with the help of this video, it will be easier. And I would really recommend you to take your book aside. You also have this presentation on Blackboard with all the pages indicated in the book that are important. It's important that you read everything in order to understand the whole process. Okay. Photosynthesis is, in fact, like I said, the most important biological process that exists. It exists already for 3.4 billion years. And it's not only plants and trees that do photosynthesis. Almost half of the photosynthesis is done by algae in the sea. Like I said, this process goes on already for 3.4 billion years. Imagine how long that is. And this process, in fact, was able to change the atmosphere. Think about the mass extinctions we have seen, and with the application we used, how you could see how the atmosphere changed through time. We have seen that CO2 levels went down, they went up, oxygen levels went up. There has been a lot of changes into the atmosphere, and this is partly thanks to the process of photosynthesis. Let's have a look at this slide. Here we see a leaf. It's in the leaves where photosynthesis is happening. To be more precise, when we zoom in a leaf, we find a typical cell, which is a cell where photosynthesis is happening. They are called mesophyll cells. And a typical mesophyll cell has about 50 chloroplasts inside. Depends on the type of leaf you have. And it's in these chloroplasts that we have the process of photosynthesis happening. We can see a typical chloroplast, which has these discs inside. Okay, we call this the thylakoids, and we will see this in a lot of detail, explaining why those organelles are important for the process. So photosynthesis is the process of converting CO2 with the help of sunlight into sugar molecules. So the plant needs CO2. It has to obtain CO2. This happens through certain pores in the leaf, in the epidermis of the leaf, and we call these pores stomata. So you can see them as little mouths. They open in order for the CO2 to be absorbed. So you can see here open stomata. So their little mouths, they open, and the CO2 can be absorbed through these pores. When the stomata are closed, the plant has enough CO2, and it doesn't need more at that point, so the stomata can be closed. So the photosynthesis is happening in the mesophyll cells, but we have other types of cells in a leaf as well. The other type we call bundle sheet cells. These cells, they are the cells that surround vascular bundles. Okay, so they don't really have chloroplasts, but you can think about the bundle sheet cells is like the little nerves, it's like the veins in the cells. So they assure that the mesophyll cells receive water and other nutrients in order to maintain alive. We are mainly going to focus on the mesophyll cells where the photosynthesis is happening, but of course those bundle seed cells are also very important because without them the leaf wouldn't receive enough water and nutrients for the process to be happening. So photosynthesis is happening in chloroplasts. A typical mesophyll cell has about 50 chloroplasts, and in the chloroplasts we find two things. We find a fluid called stroma, and we find disc-shaped sacs called thylakoids. Okay, it's the second thing we find inside the chloroplast. So the thylakoids are very important because the light-dependent reactions, they happen inside these membranes of the thylakoids. The Calvin cycle or the light-independent reactions, they will produce the sugar, and this happens into the stroma. So it's important to notice where every process happens. You see here, in fact, this is a very important reaction because this is the summary reaction of the whole photosynthesis process. Sorry, that's a bit not too straight. But photosynthesis is basically you take carbon, you see here the carbon, number 1, you take water, you take sunlight, number 3, and this will be converted into number 4, glucose, and of course we all know that there is a byproduct because trees make oxygen. Okay, so let's have a look at this. It's very important, this reaction, because it's a summary of the whole thing we're going to see. We have carbon dioxide together with water, which will be converted to glucose and oxygen thanks to sunlight. To see this process in a more schematical way, here you can see what's happening, the overall chemical reaction. We have water, number 1. We have carbon dioxide, number 2. Both of these will be converted with the help of sunlight, number 3, into oxygen and glucose. Okay, so that's the reaction. Sunlight, water, carbon dioxide go in, oxygen, glucose is coming out. That's photosynthesis. That's the whole process. To understand the whole process, we have to separate it into two pieces. Like I said, there is the light reaction, let's call it A, which we're going to explain in a separate video, and we have the light independent reaction, or the Calvin cycle, which we will call B. Okay, so here I can draw a line because we're going to explain two things. The photo part of photosynthesis is number A, it's the light dependent reaction. It's the reaction that converts sunlight with the help of water into oxygen. And then the synthesis part is how CO2 with energy coming from the light reaction is converted into glucose. So it's a two-step reaction. Also reaction number 2 will be explained in a separate video. Another interesting thing I would like to explain is, most of you know that most leaves are green, most algae are green, and have you ever wondered why they are green? That's why that is because the pigment molecule inside the leaves, the chlorophyll itself, is in fact a green molecule. Why is it green? Because it's a light capturing pigment molecule, and it absorbs all kinds of light except green light. So it absorbs violet, blue, and red light, like you can see here in the chart. It absorbs all kinds of light except it's here in the green area. It's not absorbing green light. That's why we typically perceive leaves as green. There are some exceptions. There are certain trees that have red leaves. That's because they have other pigment molecules inside that give it a red impression. Okay, here you can see the very same thing. You see that all kinds of wavelengths are absorbed, and you see here that it's lower in the green area here, like in this area. You see that there is less light absorbed, and that's why we perceive the leaves as green. And here we see a picture of a green leaf that, with chlorophyll inside. As we all know, in autumn the leaves can turn yellow or red. That's because the chlorophyll is dying off. And with this I want to close the first video of photosynthesis. Okay. Entonces, to summarize, we have seen that photosynthesis is one of the most important processes in the biological world. It's one of the oldest as well, because it's already happening for 3.4 billions of years. And we have learned that photosynthesis is a two-step process which converts sunlight, carbon dioxide, and water into oxygen and glucose. So in the following videos, we will have a closer look to the two separate reactions, which are the light-dependent reaction and the light-independent reaction, to see more in detail how this chemical conversion is happening in the leaves.